And that's all I got.
Share a show so we can grow.
What was that? Sure, so we can grow. Good afternoon, everybody. It's Kelby, joined by Drew and Tim. We're here for another episode of Learn from Tim. How you guys doing today?
Good.
We're learning something new every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Nice. All right, so what we're going to go over today is what are some hurdles or troubles or problems you should expect when working with the federal government? How much time do you got?
Well,
Sorry,
everybody. We'll be here till good
Part 5.
2024.
No, they're great people to work with.
Okay, we got to start telling the truth right now. Okay. They are difficult, but then again, you can only make it as difficult as you want it to be.
I guess I should start with why. What can you pinpoint that why is it so difficult to work with the federal government?
Well, everyone out there has difficulty of hiring people with experience. In the federal government world, people will go in there to get a job because they feel that the retirement is really good. But now trying to find somebody that's really good on what they know and what, like in construction, they don't know. 20 years ago, when we first started Armed Corps, or even before that, I was doing federal government work, it was actually really good to work in that ring. The guys that were CORs or the engineers, you want to call them, they were really easy to work with. They knew what they were talking about. They knew what they were going to do. And so now you have this conflict that people are coming in there and they are so stringent on what the word says in the spec book or the FAR clauses. And it's a hard battle. Because they're book people and they're going to look at the book and this is what you're supposed to do. So the most difficult thing is to compete with that. You know, they're a big monster. They're the David and Goliath story. And we're David. And so we have to carry our slingshots around and protect ourselves. But it's the experience that they're bringing in. They can't find the people to work. Or to even have experience in that ring. So that's what you're contending with. And that's one of the hardest things. You know, a lot of people say it's the architect. You know, they hire the architect and then they hire the construction guy. They're the mediator. But if the mediator, and they've already paid the architect and the architect did the drawings, they're going to always push it onto the GC. So documentation's the most important thing to do when you're out in the federal government world. And you can have the best documentation, but it's still going to be a battle. And then the general construction guy is going to go to the architect and say, you know, these drawings suck. But if you work together, and that's the way it used to be, as a team, everyone would sit there, you'd have your mediator, your VA or your federal government agent work with you as a team. And it's not like that now. And I don't know what happened.
I was curious. I wonder why they don't want to work with. I mean, you think they want this project, especially at the VA. It's for veterans. Like, we're trying to improve these facilities for them, and they're, I mean, almost making it difficult for us. Yes, we're not perfect on our part all the time, but why wouldn't we want to work together to move the needle?
Well, the federal government, if you have certifications, they feel that the people with the certification gets a privilege to get set aside work. And so these people started coming in the federal government world and saying, were they jealous? Are they envy of what we do? And they're making a whole bunch of money. And every time they come up with some kind of change order and the architect's already been paid, they go to the architect and say, hey, listen, why is this like this? And then the architect's going to fight for what they got paid for. So it's a battle, and you can't really gather each other as a team. And that's what used to happen. Work together and it makes their job easier. I don't get it either. If you allow the contractor or the architect communicate together, I think you would solve a lot of things instead of you go directly to the engineer, to the department, the federal department, and then the engineer goes to the architect. That middle person is what's making up whatever story is on us. So it comes back, and then it comes back to the general contractor. I don't know what happened. I really, really don't know. I think change orders are a very bad word. So at this time, they've created the REA, a request for equitable adjustments, and they try to put that towards the end so it became a claim. And I think the change order became different. And change order is if something happens to the drawing or it's unforeseen. Typically, us as general contractors typically don't want to screw around with the paperwork on a change order. We just want to move. And it takes so much more time to wait for approval, and then you're stopped. So you're pulling off. Now you're fighting the battle of this change. Now they do things that hey, move on. We'll get you at the end on the claim. But if they would just work with us, I think it would be a lot easier for the whole team. And I don't know if they realize that or not. I don't know. I think they just feel as if the federal government, they're people just like us.
Yeah.
And you want to try to work together with them. And it's just kind of weird right now.
Yeah.
I haven't seen this in a long time. Being in the federal government before and even working for the Army Corps of Engineers, I was on that side. And it made my job easier to work as a federal employee to allow that contractor to do what they do best. And it didn't make it difficult.
It's trust.
It was trust. And so now it's like you have these people that really want upper leverage. And it's really putting a lot of these veteran-owned businesses out of business.
It's definitely difficult because you could do all the documentation and have the best of your ability with every aspect of your organization, but it's hard to think that you would think it's a direct reflection of the COR, that this job's not progressing or whatever, whoever it is. But it seems to always the finger gets pointed back at the contractor. And that seems like something that's kind of frustrating for sure and defeating for especially someone like you, especially some of the emails and phone calls you get.
Being the veteran, it's kind of the ones we're getting the most hit. We're the damaged ones. We're the ones getting slapped. I would rather, it's sad. I'd rather be out on a battleground than sitting here and battle for something we felt that's right.
Yeah. How do you combat that? How do you combat it?
If you're out there, at least you know what you're doing. At least you know what's in front of you. Here, when you're doing work for the federal government, you don't know ever what's going to come up. You don't know what an email is going to pop up in front of you and say, where did this come from? How and why did they make this up? We're veterans. We're here to help veterans.
Right.
If they want to set aside work for veterans, no matter what, I don't, personally, I've been working for other contractors. If we're not a veteran-owned business and you're just a regular contractor, you're going to have the same problem. You're not going to be able to handle it any different other than they have attorneys on call all the time, on retainer. And when you're a small business, you can't afford that.
Right.
And what's sad is that we're the ones that fought for the freedom here for this country. We're doing work for the federal government, and they say it's a privilege that we get this certification or we set aside work for you. But why make it so difficult? I thought it's a real good program if it's ran right.
Yeah. So how do you help other your employees under you combat it? I mean, obviously we've seen some employees just go through the ringer with some of these locations and CORs or managers or whatever.
We've had employees that don't want to work here anymore just because of that. We've had employees work out on job sites that the agent would go out there and just yell right in front of their faces for no reason. It's sad. We're all people. Why does it make you any better or any different because you're a federal employee? And so we have to do a lot more training for our employees to say, hey, this is what you're going to run into. I've seen some people grow because of it. They got that thrown in front of us. Now it's like, whatever. Yeah. They're going to waste their time, come out and waste their hot breath in front of me. I'm just going to get a job done. But you can get a job done. It won't be perfect for them. Mm-hmm. And I've seen people leave here and because they can't handle the stress, that mentally would knock them down.
Yeah. So, I mean, what are some, do you got anything right now?
What are you gonna ask?
I was just gonna ask, like, what are some things that we can do to combat that? Like, I know it's all, for me, it's just your mindset, how you react to it. But a lot of people don't grasp that. So what are some things, documentation, but it's like, man, some of the things that I've witnessed or seen or heard is just like, what the heck can you do?
Well, I gave you the battle up front. So now we got to pull back and you got to realize what you have to do. One, our documentation will win. We have been and we got tested and we won. Mm-hmm. So every time that we've been in situations with the federal government, our documentation has won. So if anyone wants to go work for the federal government, the most important thing is to have the documentation and to go to your employers, your managers, your estimators, your people that are doing it behind the scenes, in front, in actually at the job. Go to them, talk to them, and saying, hey, your documentation won this. Mm. Your documentation has got us here. Your documentation has done everything we possibly could to win. And that gives them a positive attitude because it's only not going to make what we do better. It's going to make them stronger. But mentally, it's up to you. Anyone employee, is up to them to make their choice. Hey, I don't have to contend with this. Mm-hmm. I don't have to deal with it.
What do you say to people that want to get combative with this other party, like the VA or whatever? What kind of attitude, or should they come with a combative attitude, or just kind of sometimes it's you got to do that kind of shut up and color type thing? Do as they say.
The hardest thing to do is be humble. When you get someone to confront you and saying something you're doing wrong, it's very hard to hold and retain. Mm. The best thing you can tell them to do is pull back. Mm. If you pull back and you start thinking about what can be the funniest thing, if you look at them, just make something funny out of it. Laugh to how silly and stupid it is when they come back with you. Mm-hmm. You want to have, we personally can probably sit here and train people that want to go work for the federal government.
Yeah.
It depends. If we can want to put a training program that will help people to get through it, you got to be heads up with them. So when we hire people, we got a training policy program that we can sit down with them and tell them, hey, you're going to run into this. This is what you need to be ready for. Because you think about the 15 years we have been in business, and now what we've done, majority of it is federal government work. All the little things we've ran ourselves into, we can be way up front to tell them what we've went through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That could be a process when any contractor out there hires people. Hey, we've been through this, we've been through this, we've been through this, this, and this. And they'll go, okay. Maybe they'll change their mind working here, or go, man, okay, this is a competition here. This is we're in a sports, a field, and we're going to win, and this is how we're going to do it. And I think everyone, as managers and estimators and superintendents, need to have that kind of attitude.
Yeah.
We talked about yesterday about the culture, but it's like you got to have it, you got to sell it, and you got to prove it. So if you're a project manager and you call up your superintendent and go, these idiots just, they suck.
Yeah.
But if you're doing that, you're passing it on to the superintendent, right?
Yeah.
But the manager should, hey, you know what? Don't worry about this. It's all right. We've been through this. This is how we're going to do it. Write it down. Let's make this into a competition.
Yeah.
Who's going to win this? Change it.
Yeah.
You send bad words mentally.
You've already lost.
You lost.
Oh, yeah.
And we've seen that many.
Yeah.
So there's a training program that we can create that this is what we need to do. This is a policy. Mm-hmm. You get a bad email and Tim sends it to you. It starts from me. I need to go up to him and say, hey, don't worry about this. You know, we went into a situation that we could be losing some money. I told him, don't worry about it. We'll get it back.
Yeah.
And that's how you start. Because if you start the other way and say, hey, excuse my French, these bastards are going to gang up on us and they're going to do this. You live with that negativity, it's going to be there and it's going to show up.
Yeah.
But if we reverse it and say, hey, we're going to get it back. And that's that program. That's that training program.
Yeah.
If we can do that.
Yeah. The federal government will, if you don't work with them well, they will chew you up and spit you out.
And then I said, okay, it doesn't mean we have to just come up to them with our knees and say, oh, hey, we'll do anything for you. No,
right.
We're going to sit here and lay this out.
Hold your ground.
Hold your ground. Be humble about it. And we're there to take care of it.
Yep.
If it's $1,000 hit, just do it. Anytime and every time we keep going, hey, this is a change here, it's a change here, we got to pull back. You got to pull back on that. $500 ain't worth it to try to fight for $2,000.
Yeah.
It really isn't. And so that's where that time management, the training, and mental go.
Yeah. So do you think it's possible to hold the federal government accountable?
Yeah. I most definitely do. It's just hard, and where do you do it? Mm-hmm. The only way to do it is put it in documentation, recover it with emails, follow-ups, phone calls. You'll get it. I've seen it so many times now that a lot of us feel like that we're just getting attacked. But is that just what we put in our heads because we're getting attacked? Or is it everyone else? Yeah. I'm telling you, it's everywhere else.
Mm-hmm. So documentation's huge is what I'm gathering. I mean, because if it's not documented, it never happened. You never said it. So it's kind of hard to hold accountable the government when it's not even documented.
I'm going to tell you what, if you're a project manager and you walk into a meeting in a VA and you got a T-shirt and a hat, you're just a normal guy off the street. They profile so much. If you walk in there with a nice pair of slacks and a polo shirt, no hat, well-groomed, you walk into that meeting, you got present of your folders, your files, and everything in front of you, they're going to look at you different.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just down and ground and you're just very defensive on what you say and how you say it, they're coming right back at you because they are computer Nazis. They love to say everything on the computer, and they love to say everything in words and email, and that's what's so easy for people. They can get behind the keyboard and say whatever they want. But then don't take it that hard because people read emails so differently.
Yeah. I had another question I was going to ask. Yeah. I forgot it. But no, I mean, it's just other things. So this could be another episode, but subcontractor specific. As a GC, it's all your fault every time. That's what I've noticed. I don't know if you want to expand on that. Like if you have subcontractors and they're late on stuff, they're not answering on stuff, it's still your fault as the GC because the VA will come hard at you on no matter what because they see Armed Corps on that project. So what are some things, what is another thing with, I mean, documentation probably again with subcontractors to hold them accountable? You've mentioned in the past 72-hour notices and stuff. I don't know what you think about dealing with subcontractors along with the VA.
Well, we never really had problems with subcontractors in the Department of VA or the federal government years ago. But then once we got this situation that, no, we're doing this, they don't know what they're doing, and drawings are not the best, but there's some good architects out there that do a phenomenal amount of work, and they do great. But when there's times you do have bad times with architects and the design is terrible, that's where your battle is. And when you got subcontractors that don't even want to do work at the federal government level anymore, then yes, you're right. It's the GC. Then you're starting to send out 72-hour notices. You know, the VA is going to send us a default. They're going to send us a cure notice. They're going to send us whatever so quickly that we have to do the same thing to our subs. But we also have to put them through the training program. We have to create them to come here and say, here, this is what we're going to contend with. This is how we're going to do it. You know, work it with that way. But it's a hard thing to do. There's less and less subcontractors that want to come on the federal government properties to do work.
Yeah.
Because of the areas of what's happened to them.
That's a good point. I mean, if we have a system that works, why not teach everybody else? Because someone's got to do it. Someone's got to do the work. So why not? There's a company out there, Armcorps, that can take advantage of this and be the best at this field of work. So why not do everything we can to help everybody else? I mean, if companies continue to not want to do this, then who's going to do the VA work? So it's like we have to take advantage of that and create a system or a process that's the best out there, and we can be at the pinnacle.
Well, I really feel that we're really close. I really do. We have some tweaking. We always have tweaking, but the process and the programs that we have together and what we've created in the past 15 years, it's a lot. And we went from the good part of the federal government to the real hard, difficult. And I think what COVID didn't help. COVID was a cause of them to be able to work at home. So now it's really hard to get a hold of the CO or the COR or the engineers.
Yeah, and that's what I just wrote down is I think another thing besides documentation is the connection, the relationships you must build, because you said it, if you come in with negative energy, they're going to feed off of that, and it's not going to help. I think having those conversations with these CORs and COs and stuff and building those relationships, that's anything within life. I mean, having a good relationship, you're more than likely going to get what you want. So I think that's documentation and relationships are huge.
Do reverse psychology with these people. It's so... You're going to have the worst CO or COR or engineer, whatever you want to call them, and they're going to pound you. They would freak out if you could just turn around and send them an email or a phone call. Hey, what can I do to help you? What can I do to make your job easier? They're going to say, well, just do your job. I said, what is that then? I want to see your layout, because you go to one VA or a federal agency, it's going to be different than another side.
Yeah,
that's a great point. They are all different. So when you go to a pre-construction meeting and you're sitting down with them and you're going through all the documentation, you're going to say, hey, we have worked in many areas. What can we do in your area that's different than here? Because their paperwork's different. Their attitudes are different. Their demeanor, the way they run things, it's all different. Let them tell you, hey, this is what I'm asking for. Write it down. And then when you come back here at the office or wherever you're working, send them an email. Hey, just going over the things that we've talked about. This is where we're going to hit it, and this is where we need to hit the most.
Right.
And just repeat it. And that's what you're doing to help them to run.
Well, I mean, we've had multiple occasions recently is we'll have a PM per se that does not have a good relationship with a couple CORs. And we've had a manager, another manager or something go and have that conversation face to face, and it kind of mended that relationship. So, I mean, that could be another thing of just shifting stuff around to put people in the places that they need to be. But also you need to let your employees know, like you said, have the conversation. This is what you could face, but it's the energy that you bring into that relationship with that COR or whatever is it's going to take you to the direction you're supposed to go. And we've seen that. We have prime examples of that. So you can't go in there with negative and fight fire with fire, basically. You got to calm that situation down. I mean, be a firefighter if that's what you want to, if we want to get cheesy with this, is like a COR could be having a bad day. This is anything in life. You could change someone's life by simply just having a conversation with them and asking them how they're doing or letting them talk about themselves. That's a big rule. People like to talk about themselves. So create that relationship, that bond, that bridge, and things will be a lot easier.
80% of the places we work love us. It's the other 20. That's how you work in life. If you have 80% of your control of your life, the 20%, it's like relationships. It's like anything else, 80-20. If you're going to try to find the other 20 for that, you're not. Because if you go out and look for that 20, your whole 80's gone. So the focus is working together, doing what you can, and that's all you can do.
Yeah.
And so that's in anywhere, any life. You don't know. These people that are grumpy to us are grumpy to everyone else.
Shoot, you have better odds.
They don't like their job, or they had family problems, like you said. You don't know. But all you got to do is say, hey, understand, but what can we do to make this better and help?
Yeah, that's good. You want to add anything?
I like how you brought up the COVID scenario earlier, but the one good thing about working for the federal government is that when we worked through COVID, work did not really stop for us. The federal government's going to still spend money. If you working in other fields of work, prices get too high. We're going to have stuff on back order, but the government will still have money to spend, and work will always be available. It'll be a little restricted with vaccines, how they, put that on us, but there was always money flowing from what I took from it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's all out there.
Yeah.
I mean, even not even the federal world, you're going to go out and do work, and to please, it's customer service. Everyone's going to have a problem with something. Mm-hmm. If we weren't federal agent or federal contractors, we would be something else, and there would be something else we'd talk about. How do we fix this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's everywhere.
Yeah,
and it's just it's tough. Well, we're best at it. How can we be the best at it?
Yeah, I mean, that you choose your tough. That's the thing. You choose your hard. I mean, you have a bad relationship with someone, you can choose to just continue to react in a bad way or negative way, or you can choose to flip the script. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's like employees, ask them the question, their last statement, come back with what they mentioned.
Yeah.
So if the federal agent's saying, well, this is just horrible, so you're saying it's horrible. Mm-hmm. Let them explain to you why is it horrible.
Right.
Yep.
You're interrogating them.
Yeah.
And so that's how you have to do it, is reverse it.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you don't show it. They don't know it.
Yeah.
They're going to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that's a good stopping place.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time. I don't know if you guys want to add anything, but we can end it here.
Oh, I'm good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, you guys follow us on all the social media platforms. If you guys have any questions, just comment in on any of our posts or comment on YouTube or anything. We're typically monitoring that all the time. You can also email Drew or I at Drew or Kelby at armcoreinc.com. And that's all I got.
Share a show so we can grow.
What was that? Sure, so we can grow.
That was sure.
See ya.